You accuse me of an evil act, yet you committed. Undeniably, you must be human. These are the words from character Susan Yosuget in the book Immortal Dark. Now, Immortal Dark is a young adult, dark academic, romantic fantasy novel written by Tigis Girma. Tigis Girma is an Ethiopian writer based in Australia. And I really, really, really wanted to like this book, and I didn't. It's not that I didn't like it, it's just that it was meh. But I had to like it enough because I bought the second book. So something about it was compelling enough for me to continue. However, I still have my critiques, and I'm just going to go through them with you today. Hey girl, welcome back to the Let Me At podcast, my podcast where I talk about whatever I want, wherever I want, whenever I want. How are you doing today? I hope you're doing well. And yes, so we'll talk about Immortal Dark. Immortal Dark is a book that came out in 2024, and it is the first book written by Tigis Girma, so I give her some grace with that. However, I just think that the book was just a little too much. I think there's a lot of plots intersecting, and then there's a lot of things that just are never truly answered, or some things that are just never like brought back up again. I know that this is the first book of a trilogy. So the first book came out in 2024, the second book came out in 2025. I think the third book came out in 2026, and like I like that as a reader, but I think also having some space between books could be helpful. But I haven't finished the second book. I just started it maybe like a day or two ago. Um Also, tangent, I am on my journey of reading. Woo! I read 10 books last year, which was a big goal for me because it was not a goal of mine last year at all. And I read 10 books. So this year I want to read 12 books. So if you have any book suggestions for me, I really love romantic fantasy. I love romantic fantasy books. I'm sorry, I said it. I like dark academia. I love black people. So if they black, bring it on. Bring it on. Easy to read self-care like books are good but I don't know autobiography. I don't want to read about autobiography. No, all due respect, biography, non-fiction work. I really don't want to read that. The world already is too hard. I read books to escape, like I watch TV. I really enjoy Fourth Wing. That was a good book. That was a good book series. I'm really excited for that, but that's probably not coming out until like next year. But like just something in those realm. I really kind of stick with more of the fantasy, but not not dystopian. Like I'm not really a huge dystopian. Like I think the reason why I like Fourth Wing because it's more fantasy than dystopia. Because of the world we live in. But yes, that's kind of where I'm at. So if my book recommendations, go for that. But for today, Immortal Dark. So Immortal Dark is a book that I just wish I liked more, and I wish I liked it more because I think that it had a lot of potential when it came to building the storyline up. But like I said, it's a slow read. So like I started reading the book in December of 2025, and I do guided reading. So I listen to audiobooks and I read along the physical copy at the same time. And I think that if I was just reading the book, I probably wouldn't have finished it. I think having the audiobook to read along really did help. But I feel like I had to pay extra attention when reading the book because it was just it was just a little confusing in the beginning because it's so slow. Also, there's a lot of world building in the book. So pretty much this book is about the main character. Her name is Kidana Dana, and she goes on this journey where she is trying to find her kidnapped sister, Junadana, right? Her sister was kidnapped on their 18th birthday, and she's trying to figure out who kidnapped her, right? So she infiltrates the infamous Yuxla University, which is our setting of this book, where she has to go on this hunt to figure out where her sister is, but she also has to inherit her family's house on this campus. She also has to live in proximity to vampires. And we also had these enemies to lovers, like storyline between her and vampire or Draenic in this world named Susunyo Saget in her family's house. So pretty much in this world, there are Draenics, which are vampires. There are Draenics and there are Octis. So Octis are humans, are part of a bloodline of 80. There are 80 families a part of this one bloodline. and these are the only families in which vampires in this book can drink from, right? And the reason why that is because back in the day, there was these three binds that were placed onto vampires by the last sage, right? And those three binds were that vampires cannot drink outside of those 80 families, that vampires had to lose some of their strength, and that vampires cannot just go around turning people all willy-nilly, that they would have to give up a life in order to gain a life, to be a vampire. And because of these three binds, vampires in this world are kind of constricted like that. So while in Yuxla, she has to go and take this class called Dranokti, which is Drainik Opti, and pretty much the point of the class is for students to understand like what the ultimate sacrifice was for Nemesis, the really big powerful vampire who made the deal with the last sage, was in order to become companions. So pretty much in this world, after you graduate Dranokti, each human can have one or two vampire companions, right? And pretty much the whole class is to talk about like what was the big cost for that. But yeah, but I think that storyline in itself was really good, but I think that it takes up such a large portion of the book because we spend so much time with Kidan and her friends reading and studying and trying to figure out how to pass this class, because apparently only one person per semester passed the class, and Kidan will not be able to inherit her family's house unless she passes the class, right? So like she had to pass the class. So there's stakes in that, but I think the stakes with her sister being missing feels like it dwindles as the book goes on, because there's some person, like, we know in the background like she's looking for her sister, but sometimes it feels like, all right, girl, where's the sister? Where's the sister? Where, you know what I mean? And I think I think that the whole Dranokti course takes lead a lot of the time when I feel like it should be more of a background plot. Um, and then we also have the enemies to lovers, forced proximity relationship between Susuyo Saget and Kidana Dana. Now, Susuyo Saget is this sexy, mysterious Draenei who is the last Draenei of House Adonis. So pretty much every house. So like I said, these 80 bloodlines are, Octis, right? So in Yuxley, the university that they're at, there are 12 houses that make up Yuxley, right? And these 12 houses border one another, and they have one universal law called the universal law. And pretty much that law is that no one is prohibited into Yuxley without an invite, right? And then there are two houses inside: the Adana house, which is Kijan's house, and then the Ferris house. And each of these houses can make up whatever law that they want, right? Which is also another plot that creates more tension within the book, right?
Oh my goodness, I feel like I'm freaking out.
So pretty much Kidan's parents died 14 years ago and left the house to Susuno's for a reason we do not understand, because that has never happened before. So in order for Susuno's to not inherit the house, Kidan is visited by Dean Ferris, the dean of the university, and say, you have 3 days to go into that house and claim that house, or the house is going to go to Susuno's. And if he masters that house, he could create any laws, and it could be really dangerous for us all. So she goes in, and now she is on this journey of once having to take Dranokti in order to inherit the house, because she can't just go up and inherit the house. No, she had to take Dranokti. She had to have a companion in order to inherit the house, and then she has to also master the house. She has to master the house in order to make laws. Like, it's a whole big thing. I think the house is the most complicated parts of the book that I still don't quite understand, because the house is like kind of like this. It's like the house from Monster House. Like, it's the sentient being where it amplifies the people who live in its emotions. So Kidan is constantly visited by her sister, who's like, you have to kill them all, or you're not looking for me hard enough, or you're not trying hard enough. So she's like kind of grapples with her own guilt. And then also she sees Mama Anuet, who is a character, who is her stepmom that Kidan killed in the very beginning of the book, which is another thing. Like, I feel like a lot of stuff that happened in the beginning of the book is never addressed at the end of the book. So like in the beginning of the book, Kidan is on trial for murder. She kills her stepmom because her stepmom was conspiring against her, and she was trying to figure out who took her sister. And the stepmom, she tortures it out of her stepmom that the stepmom says Susuyosa get. What? So now she has to be in this house with this man that she believes took her sister, which adds an added weight, and she also has to inherit this house and master the house, and there's a house law for her house. And the one house law says if Susanyosa gets endangers Adana house in any way, that the house will take something that he treasures from him. So we watched the journey of both Susinyos and Kadam both trying to like learn how to like master this house. That way they can like understand and change the law. Like Susinyos wants to change the law because apparently the way he endangered the house is because he tried to leave the house. And he tried to leave the house because he didn't want to be there no more. And the house was like, oh, you're trying to leave me? Come here, come back. And no, I'm going to take from you your vampirism, baby. Yeah. So the house is slowly turning him into a vampire, which is why he doesn't want to leave or anything like that. And the reason why he's so connected to the house is because so Kidan's parents are, I believe they were archaeologists, right? And pretty much there were three artifacts that the last sage had, and pretty much those three artifacts, I think it was a blade, a mask, and ring. I think it's a ring, but I could be wrong. Her parents found the mask artifact, and it's hidden within the house. And after they died, Susios is the only one who knew about that mask. So they made a law that said that he had to stay in that house and he had to protect the house, because if he didn't, someone else could get that mask. And pretty much there's a whole other plot where there is vampires who want to undo the three binds, and the only way to undo the three binds is by having the three artifacts that the last stage had, putting them together to break the binds. Because if they break the bind, then they could just have their full vampire power and everything like that. So like that's like one of the bigger, that's like a big plot. But that's a big plot, and I know that was a lot. So I hope you guys are staying up with me, right? But I think that plot, and then also I said about the Hojonaki plot, I feel as if like those are really big, but like I think sometimes it takes away from the whole idea of her trying to find her sister. Like her sister is like the most important thing to her, right? And Kidan, she's a very morally great character, and she would do absolutely anything to find her sister. And we see that in like she killed Mama Anuet. She put this other kid named Tamil Ajitov in a coma, but she did it. She did it by she was driving a car, and she crashed the car. And she just said, well, I guess we'll see. Because the whole thing is also, on top of the fact that she's such a protector and she cares about the people around her so much, she's very selfish. She's not a good character. And I think because she's not a good character, it made it really hard for me in the very beginning to want to continue reading the book. Because it's like, well, she's not a good character. I don't feel for her. None of the characters in this book is good. There gotta be someone in this book that's good that make me want to read it. But then I realized maybe that's the point. Maybe the point that she's not a good character and you have to see her through all her flaws. But she's so insufferable sometimes because she thinks, and she's so impulsive, and she's very like one track minded about her wants and her desires, that she takes people down with her. Like she has her friends that she has drawn close attachment to. She has Susan Yost that over the course of the book has drawn this attachment to, and she constantly throws them under the bus in order to get what she wants. She'll do anything in order to find her sister. And there are so many plot. I'm not going to give you this. I'm not going to spoil the ending in case anybody decides they want to read the book, because I think that the book itself isn't terrible. I think there's so much potential in it, and I think that I do think it is worth a read, and like I said, I bought the second book, so I thought it was worth a read enough for me to want to continue reading it. And I think the reason why I wanted to continue reading the series is I do want to know what happens because of the plot, because of the twist in the end. Like, because of the twist in the end, how Kidan like finds her sister, that whole storyline did make me want to continue reading it. But I also wanted to see if any of the major plot points that were left unanswered in the first book were answered. Like in the beginning, her aunt Sylvia had left her journal, that had kind of like broke down the houses and things like that, and who Kidan should like look out for. But the journal never comes back into play after chapter 26. Or the murder trial that Kidan is on never brought back up after she gets to Yuxley. There's this whole organization called the 13th who are trying to dismantle Yuxley's universal law system. That way, every house has the opportunity to create their own law, but that puts the university in danger, because then anybody could come into the university, human, rogue, whatever, what have not, and they're trying to take down smaller houses. So because Adana House only has one draining, which is Susanyo's, a lot of the people, and it's a founding house, a lot of the other houses are trying to like take down and take over Adana House. You know what I mean? So there's all these different like it's all these different stakes, that feel really high, but I think it takes so long for them to all come to fruition. And again, like with that ordination with the 13th, I feel like they're so important because we're trying to figure out if they have anything to do with her sister. We find out that they don't, and then we're like, okay, never mind. And it's just like, what happened? What like they like we were they're so important. We think that they're the main villain. We think that we're gonna get some answer through them, and then they just kind of fall off the face of the earth, And we don't find out the main villain or the people who took her sister until like page 300, and it was just like a random blurt of a name by some random ass vampire. You know what I mean? So it was just like sometimes, and then like also when we find out the thing about her sister, why her sister got kidnapped and why she left or whatnot, we're like, you're kind of left like, huh, huh, what do you mean? Like, but then also there's points in times in the book where I do feel for Kidan though. Like I said that she's a morally great character. I said that she's really self-serving in the way that she acts, but I do think that she does it with a purpose. Like her intention isn't bad, but she is a character who is so concerned with death, and she's so okay with dying. And I think because she's so okay with dying, she even carries around like a little blue pill and like a bracelet that she has, because if she ever got to go out, she had to take it out, take her own self out. You know what I mean? But because of that, she has no real thought or care for anyone else's life. I mean, for her own life, that sometimes it feels as if she has no care for anybody else's life around her, which is why she keeps putting people in the predicaments and the situations that they are in. Also, she puts this idea of morality onto characters around her. She puts this idea like she makes a group of friends, right? And pretty much I think she kind of uses these friends as a way to test her own morality. Like if these people are good, then that means that there's some good in me as well. That means I have to protect them from my really bad evil being. But then she also finds out that these people are also morally great and corrupt in ways as well. So there is no one in this universe that's actually really good, you know. And I think that that's the turning point in the book where Kidan finally decides to fall into her nature for bloodlust, her nature to kill, her nature to be evil. And I think once she decides to do that, that's when she decides she wants to live, And I think that that's really interesting. There is a quote from the book. I have a lot of notes. I wrote a lot of notes for this. Let's find it. So pretty much there is a point in the book where Kidan for her class, has to ask what Susanyo's purgatory is. And pretty much, in this book as well, whenever a vampire bites a human, the human sees the vampire's vision, like sees a part of the vampire's life, and the vampire also sees a part of the human's life depending on where they bite. So pretty much, it gets a little steamy, and Susios bites Kidan in her inner thigh, right? And she sees, I forgot what she saw. I don't want to go back to find that right now in case you want to read the book, but pretty much afterwards they had this whole conversation. Susios is saying how, like, we looked into each other's minds, you still don't have ease with me, you don't trust me, I don't understand what your problem is, and it's because he's a vampire. And then he says, you shouldn't fear the madness you keep company during the night, but the chaos of the day. You expect me to hurt you, so you guard yourself, but you leave yourself defenseless against others. When will you recognize that humans are the most despicable creatures to exist? But yeah, I think that this quote really brings out the idea of like she kind of values like the goodness in the people around her, and when she finds out that they're not good people as well, she forgives them and forgives them, forgives them, but she'll forgive them, and she'll always have them by her side, but she'll never forgive Susios, or she'll never trust vampires because of who they are. But she herself also is a character who has bloodlust, who is a character who also has done bad things, and she hangs out with people who has done bad things and who has killed. But what makes them different from him? Because she doesn't enjoy it, or maybe because she does enjoy it and doesn't want to admit it. You know what I mean? That is kind of like my whole thing about Kidan. I think that the enemy. I'm going to touch on the enemies to lovers one last time. I think that the enemies to lovers with Susios feels a little like, huh? Because it's like they hate each other so bad throughout the beginning of the book that you're like, when do they ever get to the point in time where they like each other? You know, and they do. Kinda. They just kind of like this real. They have this sexual tension, you know. This real bad sexual tension with one another, and I'm like, all right, cool, great, I get it. Hey, I get it. Sexy ass vampire came over here, wanted to bite my neck. Come on. You know what I mean? But yes, overall, this is just my brief because I could really get into this book, and I don't want to, but this is my brief like thoughts and opinions on this book. Overall, I gave the book a 6.9 to 8 out of 10, like sliding scale. Because like I said, um there's a lot of points, a lot of plots in this book that are open and never closed, or open and never talked about again at any other point in the book. And I feel like, did you just forget that you wrote that? But then there's also like parts of the book that I really enjoy. Like I really enjoy her connection with her friends, and but also like I hate it at the same time, you know, like I liked her connection with Suzios and what they developed. I hate it at the same time. And then like also the ending kind of made me upset with like the way things happen with her sister. But I enjoyed it enough to continue reading it. And honestly, I think because I have the audiobook, it makes me want to read it more. And I think it makes me feel more connected to reading it and more connected to the characters as well. So yeah. But yes, if you do want to read the book, this is not me telling you not to read this book. This is me telling you my personal opinion on it, because I also have read, I have like listened to other people's opinions on it. I've seen other people's thoughts on it, and there's a lot of people who have read this book and have really enjoyed it. And I also was talking to this person how they said that they feel like the second book is even better, you know, because the world is already built, you know. So I'm going to keep reading, and maybe I'll express my thoughts on the second book like when I'm done with them. Maybe I won't. I don't really know. But yes, that's my thoughts on Immortal Dark by Tigis Gurma. But I am very excited to put this book down and let it rest and move on. But yes, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that you learned something new. If you are on your reading journey as well, let me know. Tell me what books you're reading, and we can talk about it in the comments. You can DM me on Instagram. And yeah, so thanks, guys. Bye.